الحمد لله الذي علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان والصلاة والسلام على خير الأنام نبينا وسيدنا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين صلوا على رسول الله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد صلاة تفتح لنا أبواب الرضا والتيسير وتغلق بها عنا أبواب الشر والتعسير أنت مولانا فنعم المولى ونعم النصير اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا ورزقا طيبا وعملا صالحا متقبلا يا رب العالمين اللهم فقهنا في الدين وعلمنا التأويل السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته الحمد لله اللهم بارك لنا في شعبان وبلغنا رمضان right at the doorstep of Ramadan alhamdulillah may Allah allow us to enjoy another Ramadan together alhamdulillah ni'ma min Allah sajdatu sahu or sajdata as-sahu it happens sometimes when you leave when you leave a wajib of salah or you delay an action of salah, you delay a rukn. So in the third rak'ah, I thought it was the last one, so I paused because I thought I was finishing. And so when I heard the subhanallah, I realized there's one more rak'ah left. So there was a slight delay, yes or no?
Yes.
There's a delay. So when there's a delay of a rukn, what do? Sajdatu sahu, mumtaz. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
When you delay a rukn, then there is sajdatu sahu. Of course, forgetfully or whatever it may be. If you delay a rukn, then you do sajdatu sahu. Question. The style of sajdatu sahu that I did, was it Hanafi or Shafi'i? Shafi'i. How do the Hanafis do sajdatu sahu? They do after the salam. They do assalamu alaikum rahmatullah, and then sajdatu sahu, and then tashahud and all of that, and then salams. I have many times, alhamdulillah, I've been leading salah now for 17 years. And so I know whenever you do the Hanafi style of sajdatu sahu, people get confused because there's a salam and then you go do sajda and then there's people get confused. The Shafi'i way is very simple, very easy. What is it? You do all the things, you do your sajdas, then you do salam, khair wa barakah. People don't get confused because let's say someone enters late into the jama'ah and I say assalamu alaikum rahmatullah and then he immediately jumps up and stands up. Then he separated himself from me. And in the Hanafi madhab, once you separate yourself when the imam hasn't finished actually the salah, then salatuka sifr. Labud tu'id. So for myself, and I have seen that the Shafi'i way has actually been easier for people to follow. And this is why I always say, and I always emphasize this, that the madhahib are like this. Shafi'i, Hanafi, Maliki, Hanbali are like this. If you follow one versus the other, or you follow Maliki versus Shafi'i, kulluhu fi dinillah is all the same. All of it is rahmah min Allah. The differences of the scholars is what? Rahmah. What is it? Rahmah min Allah. And that's how we should treat it. Even in the Hanafi madhab, if a person were to make a mistake that would require for them to do sajdatul sahu in Salatul Eid, or the Al-Eidain, Salatul Eidain, they say if you do a mistake in Salatul Eidain, like let's say you missed the takbirat. It happened to me so many times. You're not used to praying Eid Salah. You're not used to leading it. And sometimes you're giving a khutbah, there's kids screaming, people running around, you don't know what's going on. You know how Eid is. And the Imam, he's also insan, so he's going to forget to do takbirat. Yes or no? Yes. And so if he forgets, should he do sajdatul sahu? The Hanafi scholars themselves, they mention in their books that if a person is in such a large gathering, like Jumu'ah, like Salatul Eid, then don't do it. It's okay. Why? Because how many people are going to get confused in the behind you? Many people. Salatul Isha, people, they know the ahkam, they pray salah in the masjid all the time, so they're used to these types of things. But Salatul Eid, sometimes these people, they only come once a year or once a week, and so their sila is very little with salah. So now if the imam comes and starts doing sajdatul sahu or not doing sajdatul sahu, these people don't even know what sajdatul sahu is. And so when you do that, what is it going to cause? Confusion. They're going to say, this imam, he's adding extra sajdas in salah. They don't know. He's doing the sajda forgetfulness. You see, when you look at the breadth of the vast array of opinions in Sharia, you realize that this is out of rahmah from Allah Azza wa Jal. That this is a mercy from Allah Azza wa Jal, not to use to battle each other. You know, overseas you'll find, in Indo-Pak, I can speak, they always have madhab battles. Shafi'i, Hanafi, Maliki, Hanbali. We hate you. Don't marry a Shafi'i and don't marry a Hanafi. What is this? Kalam farigh. All of us say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasulullah. Imam Malik, ala al-ra'si wal-ayn. Imam Shafi'i, ala al-ra'si wal-ayn. Imam Ahmad, ala al-ra'si wal-ayn. Imam Abu Hanifa, ala kulluhum. All of them are our imams. All of them. Not one and say, Shafi'i, I have no struggle with him. Astaghfirullah al-azim. All of them are our imams. And the reason I say this is because Ramadan is coming, and what happens in Ramadan? You'll see some differences here and there. Someone says, oh, why is Shaykh doing Shafi'i witr? Why not Hanafi witr? I do Hanafi witr. Why is he doing Hanafi witr? Why not Shafi'i witr? Why not Hanbali witr? Why not this? Why not this? Why not this? Ya ahbabi. All of it is Deenullah. All of it is the religion of Allah. So we should treat it with a breath of fresh air. We should actually see it as an opportunity of learning different opinions and different madhahib. Any questions on that? No? Okay, alhamdulillah.
Even if you not start the reciting tashahhud, you lose your time, delay your time, that's why you have to sajda sahwi.
Yes, if you delay a rukn. Naam. Bismillah.
So, let's say you're up and you're about to go to ruku.
Yes.
But you forgot and you wanted to go to sujood, but you didn't reach all the way down. You were like almost there, and then you stood up and remembered you had to do the ruku.
Oh, okay. So, let's say you're supposed to go to ruku', but then you went down to sujood, and then you cut yourself. Khalas, adi. It happens all the time in the first tahiyyah, the first sitting. What happens? The imam, he gets up and then he goes, oh wait, I have the tahiyyah, and then he'll sit back down. He's not fully standing, he's just right in the middle. Adi. Okay? It's fine. If there's enough of a delay, then do sajdatul sahu if you feel the need to do so. But if it's very slight, like you mentioned, like you're going and then you just catch yourself right before, then it's fine. Okay?
What if you're confused that you're completed rakat or not?
You confused?
Yeah.
You go do wudu, you drink coffee, you ask Allah Azza wa Jal, Allahumma ftah alayha futuh al-arifin. Then you say, Ya Fatah, Ya Alim. We'll leave the questions till the end. I'm just kidding. So this chapter is actually very, very important. Okay? Imam al-Nawawi, rahmatullahi alayhi, we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to shower him with mercy, Ya Rabbil Alameen, and to allow us to benefit from his ulum. Imam Nawawi Shafi'i, but we're still learning from him, yes? See? Look, this is the deen of Allah. He mentions the chapter reciting the Quran intending for it to be speech. Reciting the Quran intending for it to be speech. Ibn Abi Dawud cited disagreement regarding this matter. Reciting the Quran intending it to be speech, it is related from Ibrahim al-Nakha'i that he disliked explaining the Quran with some worldly incident. I'll explain this what this means. Now I'll just read this as an example. Umar radiallahu an, say radiallahu an. When he was in Mecca and he was reciting Maghrib Salah, he was reading, remember Mecca, what's in front of him? Kaaba. Not the sajjada that we have in Pakistan, in India, where we put the carpet and we have the Kaaba there. No, the real Kaaba in front of him. Okay? He says, وَالتِّينِ وَالزَّيْتُونِ وَطُورِ سِينِينَ وَهَذَا الْبَلَدِ الْأَمِينَ. He raised his voice. Why? Because it's in front of him. So you see, he has this live reaction and live relationship with the Quran. So is this permissible? Of course, Umar radiallahu anhu. Come on now. This is Umar radiallahu anhu, Khalifatu Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, this is very important. Can you recite the Quran intending for it to be speech? There is no problem in quoting Quran in your speech if you're not doing so to mock the verses of Allah Azza wa Jal. This is in Balagha also called al-iqtibas. You know, sometimes you'll hear me doing the introduction. Alhamdulillah alladhi allama al-Quran, khalaqa al-insan, allamahu al-bayan. Why? Is this from the Quran, yes or no? Yeah, so you kind of do iqtibas from it, okay? You'll find this in many books, you'll find this in shi'r, you'll find this all throughout the works and even the speeches of scholars, especially when it's done so in Arabic. Iqtibas. And also out of istishhad, that you find a scenario and then you remember an ayah and then you apply the ayah. Is this permissible? There was one time a group of people, they went and they kept knocking on the door of the shaykh. And you know, it was bad adab. You should just have waited. And you know what they said? One of the ulama, he said, وَلَوْ أَنَّهُمْ صَبَرُوا حَتَّى تَخْرُجَ إِلَيْهِمْ لَكَانَ خَيْرًا لَهُمْ. From Surah Al-Hujurat. So this is not, they're not playing and making a mockery out of the ayat of Allah Azza wa Jal. This is out of remembering the ayat and having istihdar of it and istishhad of it at a place in order to benefit from the ayah. Is this permissible, yes or no? Yes, of course. You'll find many examples of this. But what isn't permissible is when people start to make a mockery of it. Sheikh Shanqiti, one of the great mufassirun, one time he had one person always, like his khadim, you could say, always taking the shoes of the Sheikh and then putting it in the rack, and then so the Sheikh is going for the dars. And one time Sheikh Shanqiti, this is in Medina, okay, and the khadim, he came to the Sheikh and he thought he was being funny, okay, so he said to him the ayah that is from Allah Azza wa Jal, إني أنا ربك فاخلعنا عليك إنك بالوادي المقدس طوى. So what did he say to him? فاخلعنا عليك إنك بالوادي المقدس طوى. Right? Or it was that, and then also another example where he asked for some money. Okay, أخرج ما في جيبك, all of those different ayat. The Sheikh became very upset with him. He said, after today, don't even come close to me. Don't come close to me. Why? Because you're not supposed to make a mockery out of the ayat of the book of Allah Azza wa Jal and use them in places where they're not intended to be. Like for example, there's a few people when you eat, when food is really good, do they talk? No, they don't. إذا حضر الطعام, when the food comes, بطل الكلام. So on يوم القيامة, يومئذ لا تسمع إلا همسا. You won't hear on that day, يوم القيامة. So this verse is about يوم القيامة. So this person, he was eating and he saw everyone around him was quiet. So he said, لا تسمعوا إلا همسا. Astaghfirullah al-Azim. You're going to talk about when people don't talk around food, the same thing, Yawm al-Qiyamah? Is this appropriate? Astaghfirullah al-Azim. Or one tailor, he had on top of his shop, وَكُلُّ شَيْءٍ فَصَّلْنَاهُ تَفْصِيلًا. Astaghfirullah al-Azim. So this is when you play with the book of Allah Azza wa Jal. This is what is not permissible. Okay? When you take, what does Allah Azza wa Jal say? إِنَّهُ لَقَوْلٌ فَصْلٌ وَمَا هُوَ بِالْهَزْلِ. This Quran is not a joke. وَإِنَّهُ لَكِتَابٌ عَزِيزٌ. You have to take it very seriously. وَلَئِن سَأَلْتَهُمْ لَيَقُولُنَّ إِنَّمَا كُنَّا نَخُوضُ وَنَلْعَبُ. The people of Jahannam, what will they say? We used to play around. إِنَّا نَخُوضُ وَنَلْعَبُ. قُلْ أَبِاللَّهِ وَآيَاتِهِ. With Allah Azza wa Jal and His ayat, وَرَسُولِهِ and His messenger, كُنْتُمْ تَسْتَهْزِئُونَ. You were making a mockery of? So when you're making a mockery of the ayat and then remembering them, this is when it is not permissible. Okay? But if you're doing so to benefit from the ayat, then this is of course fine. So now does this mas'ala make sense? Does it make sense? Yes. There's a famous story, and I'm sure many of you have probably heard it. And the thing is, this story is inauthentic, okay? And a person should not be doing such a thing, okay? It's narrated a story of Abdullah ibn Mubarak, of a woman who only used to speak with the Quran. Anybody heard this story before? Yes. A woman who only would speak with the Quran. Abdullah ibn Mubarak, he saw an elderly woman, okay, in the desert, and he happened by her and he saw her by herself. And so concerned about this elderly woman, he said, Assalamu alaikum. She said, Salamun qawlan min Rabbir Rahim, from the ayah. And then he's like, what's happening? What's your case? She said, Man yudlilillahu fala hadiya lah. She's saying that, I'm lost, okay? And then Abdullah ibn Mubarak, he says, where are you coming from? So she wants to say that I'm a traveler. Subhanalladhi asra bi'abdihi laylan min al-masjid al-haram ila al-masjid al-aqsa. And then he asked, how long have you been here? ثلاث ليال سويا. And then he said, what do you eat? You've been here all this time. She said, وَهُوَ يُطْعِمُنِي وَيَسْقِينِ. He said, you've been here this whole time. Do you even have water for wudu? She said, فَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً فَتَيَمَّمُوا صَعِيدًا طَيِّبًا. And then he said, here's some food. Eat. And so what did she say? وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَكُمُ الْخَيْطُ الْأَبْيَضُ مِنَ الْخَيْطِ الْأَبْيَضِ. She's basically saying, I'm fasting. And then he said, but it's not Ramadan. And then she says, وَمَنْ يَطَّوَّعْ خَيْرًا فَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَهُ. And then he said, you might break, it's okay, if you're traveling, you can break the fast. And then she says, وَأَنْ تَصُومُوا خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. If you fast, is better for you. And then he says, why don't you speak like I'm speaking? She said, مَا يَلْفِظُ مِنْ قَوْلِ إِلَّا لَدَيْهِ رَقِيبٌ عَتِيدٌ. And then khalas, he says, let me help this miskina, whatnot. And then he puts her on the camel. And then she's like, she doesn't want him to look at her while she's a person, a woman of shyness. Abdullah bin Mubarak is from the great scholars, but still, she has this shyness. So she says, قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ. And then so he leaves her alone, and then she falls because the camel wasn't strapped. He left, and then she falls. So she says, وَمَا أَصَابَكُم مِّن مُّصِيبَةٍ فَبِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِيكُمْ وَيَعْفُو عَنْ كَثِيرٍ. And then he helps her up, and then she says, فَفَهَّمْنَاهَا سُلَيْمَانَ. Alhamdulillah, Allah give you some samaj, some fahm. And then when they reached her caravan, he asked about her family, and then she said, الْمَالُ وَالْبَنُونَ زِينَةُ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. and then when she was, to show that the sons were in the caravan, okay? And then when she was reunited, they invited Abdullah ibn Mubarak to eat, and then she said, كُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا هَنِيئًا بِمَا أَسْلَفْتُمْ فِي الْأَيَّامِ الْخَالِيَةِ. And then before parting, she expressed gratitude and gave something, and she said, هَلْ جَزَاءُ الْإِحْسَانِ إِلَّا الْإِحْسَانِ. And so the children, they said that she only spoke with Quran for 40 years. قصة غير صحيحة ما ثبتت. No sanad, no... You hear it, you're like, what is this? Yes, of course, make your whole life for Quran. But you don't need this story to be motivated. You want to be motivated? Then read the actual biographies of the scholars and the people of the Quran and the Sahaba and this. But these random stories where she didn't speak except with Quran, when you hear it, does it even make sense? It feels like some fairy tale story. Someone was like, let me think of something very creative. Allahu A'lam. Mumkin. Maybe it happened. Allahu A'lam. Maybe I didn't find the masdar for it. Perhaps. We're bashar. But at the same time, what I'm trying to get to is that this type of speech, when you try to make everything like normal day-to-day stuff, everything related to the book of Allah Azza wa Jal, then it could perhaps be a means of what? Istighfaf and istihza and making a mockery of the book of Allah Azza wa Jal. The book of Allah is for hidayah. The book of Allah is shifa. The book of Allah is maw'idah. The book of Allah is aziz. So take it as such. Not to just throw around here and there. Okay? Next thing, okay? Hukaym ibn Sa'ad, he said that a member of the Muhakkima sect from the Khawarij, okay? They came to Ali radiallahu an. And then he said to him, Astaghfirullah al-Azim, while he was leading Fajr. And he said to him, لَإِنْ أَشْرَكْتَ لَيَحْبَطَنَّ عَمَلُكَ. You're talking to Ali radiallahu an, you're going to say this type of speech? He says to him that if you commit shirk, and you do shirk, then all of your actions are wiped away. From the Khawarij, okay? This is how he's speaking to Ali radiallahu an. And so what does Ali radiallahu an respond? He responds immediately in the salah, while he's in the salah. He says, فَاصْبِرْ إِنَّ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ حَقٌّ وَلَا يَسْتَخِفَّنَّكَ الَّذِينَ لَا يُقِنُونَ. على طول he gave him a jawab. He's in salah, okay? So in moments like this, you see that there is some narrations from the Salaf, but the intention should not only be specifically to talk to them. You're actually reading the book of Allah Azza wa Jal. That is why Imam al-Nawawi later mentions that our Shafi'i companions, they said that if a person seeks permission to enter from someone who is in the salah, and then he says what? أُدْخُلُوهَا بِسَلَامٍ آمِنِينَ. He recites something. فَدُخُلُوا مِصْرَ إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ آمِنِينَ. Whatever it might be, okay, in the ayah while you're reciting in salah, okay, but you are actually reciting it. You're actually reciting it and you're intending the recitation, and it also appears to be an answer, then it is permissible in the Shafi'iyah. But in the Hanafiyah, we are very, very, very strict in regards to this. You cannot use the ayat of the Quran as a response to people when you are in salah. Outside of salah, shay akhar. We're talking about in salah, la yajuz. Your salah will break. Where's Yahya, your brother? Someone playing around? If someone, let's say, Muzammil is praying, and then he, there's a book on the floor, and then he says, Ya Yahya, khudh al-kitaba biquwwah. Can you do this in salah? No. What is it going to do? Your salah? No. Zero. You have to read Quran like you're reading Quran. Or let's say, for example, someone, his brother's name is Musa, and then he has something he's playing with. He says, Ma tilka biyaminika ya Musa. You cannot, this is not the time to be using the names of people and trying to get responses from them, okay? If you want to let people know you're in salah, just raise your voice. Allahu Akbar. Sami' Allahu liman hamida. You people do this in the family, or when you're around your family, yes or no? When they're calling your name and you just raise your voice so that they understand that he or she is in salah. So if a person intends to respond and intends to talk to someone using the book of Allah Azza wa Jal, ayat of Allah Azza wa Jal whilst they're in salah, their salah, what happens to it? It breaks. So we should be very, very careful, and at the end of the day, have the utmost respect and reverence for the book of Allah Azza wa Jal and all of the ayat that we find in the Quran. That if a person finds something where they see an ayah in practice, sure they can mention it, but not to make it a game and not to make it a joke. It's something that we need to be very, very careful about. وصلى اللهم على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بارك الله فيكم. Yes. Yes.